Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Platinum Prime for Life podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about love, lust, and laughter after 50, and it's real talk. We're going to dive into the juicy side of life, love, and everything in between. So whether you're rekindling a romance or entering the dating world again, we'll have you covered. I'm Linda Ferguson, and I'm here with my amazing co-host,
Karen Nelson-Bell.
And together we're going to be serving up some no-nonsense girlfriend-style wisdom on all things love and sex over 50. And we both qualify for that. So it's going to be fun, relatable. Hopefully you'll have some entertainment and full of tips. Oh, and before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You will find a way to do it somewhere on this page. And stay with us to the very end because we have something special that we want to share with you. It is a guide or a list of tips that we know have worked for us, and we want to give it to you. So wait till the end and we can get started. All right, and with that, let's get started. So the very first thing I want to talk about is our own experience. So Karen, tell me something about your love life up to this point. And you have a very cool shirt on. So why don't you share with people what that shirt is and what it looks like?
I'm 80. I'm getting younger. Ask me how.
Isn't that amazing? Would you believe that this is Karen's real age? I mean, every time I see her, yeah, she looks better than I do, but don't tell her. Don't tell her I said that. Anyway, Karen, why don't you share a story with everyone on what it was like, what your love life has been like, because it's interesting.
I remember the very beginning of it, and it wasn't until you asked me just now that question, that beginning of my love life, I was 12 years old at a party, and they actually were playing spin the bottle. And they would spin the bottle, and if it landed on the boy and the girl, then you had to go in the other room and kiss. And the boy wouldn't kiss me.
What?
It was such a disappointment. It was horrible. It was horrible. For my self-esteem, it was the worst ever you could imagine. Spin the bottle and he won't kiss you. Oh my
gosh. Was he your boyfriend or just some random
No,
boy that you
it
knew?
was just we were 12. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think it really qualified as a boyfriend. I did have the privilege to be married for 17 years to the love of my life. He was my hero. His name was Duncan. He was my soulmate, my business partner. We had so much fun. It was just great. I mean, I don't think there's any marriage that doesn't have moments where you think, what did I do? But we had a motto, and the motto was, it only gets better. And we made a promise that we were going to stick together. We just weren't going to give up. So that was really nice. But how I met him and was great. It was so great. We both belonged to the same church, but he was from out of town, and he was just moving to my home. My 55 years I lived in Las Vegas, and when he got to town, these people from my church said, "You guys would like each other a lot," and so I was starring in a show at what is now it was called Vegas World at that time. It's now called the Stratosphere Tower, but it was owned by a fellow that sold it, and it became another hotel. But at that time, I was starring in a show called Viva Las Vegas, and I was decked out in a red satin corset and black fishnet stockings and 4-inch heels, and I was dancing and many costume changes. They brought him to see the show. They said, we want to bring him to see the show. And so that's a successful thing for me, is to be set up, because he came backstage afterwards and they introduced me to him, and I couldn't unlock my eyes from his eyes, and he couldn't unlock his eyes from mine. We were just locked, and I felt embarrassed. It was embarrassing to be that much locked in, and I really liked this guy. And he didn't call me for a week. So I called up my friends and I said, what's the deal? Did he not like me? I thought he kind of liked me a little. And they told him, and he just thought I was too busy and too like the star of the show or something. So they said, no, she really wants you to call her. So he called me, and that took a week. And a week later, it was Valentine's Day, and he asked me to marry him. He said, it was a really peculiar proposal. Yeah. He said, so, you gonna marry me? That was the proposal.
Wow.
I didn't want to spoil Valentine's Day, because he'd bought me about $500 worth of stuff. He bought me a leather skirt with a leather jacket and a red lacy bra, and we hadn't had any relations. We hadn't had intimate relations at all.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to, and candy, and took me to dinner. I didn't want to spoil it, so I said, of course. So when he said, so you're going to marry me? And I said, of course, thinking, we've got a couple of years to work this out. And 3 weeks later, we were married.
Oh, that is beautiful.
So I figure that, first of all, that's a good solution. Oh, and I had written out, I know we're going to talk about this a little later. I had written out a list, and he was just everything on my list except for one thing. And it was not an important thing. He just loved to dance, but he wasn't very good at it. And I always wished he was a good dancer, but he could keep time, but he was kind of goofy. Some men are just like that movie Hitch. Do you remember the movie Hitch? Uh-huh. That's kind of what he was like. But we got married 3 weeks later, and stayed out for 17 years until he got sick. Yeah. In fact, he'll be gone 19 years next month.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that is.
But it's a great story of how to fall in love and get married.
It's absolutely, I love it, especially the love of your life. So, I'm going to just tell you a story on my side of things.
Okay.
It's kind of the same, kind of different. But so my first marriage was 35 years before we got divorced. So that's a long time. But from the point that we met to the point when we got married was 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks, and then we ran away and got married. And then it lasted.
You're the only person I've met that was shorter than me.
Yeah.
2.5 weeks from meeting to marriage.
Well, 2.5 weeks from dating to marriage. I knew him.
Oh, okay.
I knew him, and I thought he was stuck up, and he thought I was stuck up. And then one day I was somewhere. I was sitting somewhere. It's a kind of a cute story. I'm sitting there and I'm doing something, and suddenly I just start feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little, I don't know, self-conscious and sweaty, and what's going on? And I look, and then here's this tall, handsome guy kind of lounging in the doorway, it was very funny. And I went, oh my gosh. Anyway, the funny part of all of that is I didn't necessarily like him that much when I first met him. When we went out, I thought he was utterly boring and wasn't a conversationalist at all. But I have it, I just have sort of a thing that there's good in everyone. Everyone's interesting. Sometimes you just kind of have to wait. And what I found out with my first husband was he was so smart and he was so mentally quick, way faster than me, but for it to come to the surface, for him to actually talk about things, it took a little bit of time, Then once I got used to it, I was like, wow. And so we literally, we had a great marriage. All the way to the end, it was still good. 35 years, it was still good. but it wasn't ideal. And we both had changed a lot. So that by the time all that time elapsed, we were ready to move on.
May I ask you a question? Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Was it painful?
Was what painful?
To recognize that you...
We're talking about love, lust. Okay.
Linda, you behave now.
Okay.
Was it painful to come to 30 that many years and have it end, or was it sort of a gradual awareness and it wasn't too awfully painful? Because divorce, I think, I lost my husband to illness, but I think divorce can be even more painful than losing your guy to an illness.
Well, we are going to talk a little bit more about it. And yes, anything that's gone on for 35 years, of course, you are very used to that setup. And so divorce is a huge change. So we'll talk about it later. But yes, there's pain. Okay. I mean, it's pain like leaving a job, moving from a city you've lived in for a long time. Vast change is really hard to deal with for everyone. So there you go. But for both of us, you and I, we're quick women, right? We're not easy women, but we definitely, when we knew what was right for us and we were ready to make that commitment, we went ahead and did it. And you stayed married for 17 years. I just decided I never wanted to get married until I knew I wasn't going to get divorced. So I was a little off, but it took 35 years for that to happen. But I'd been proposed to several times before my husband. But so when I knew, oh yeah, okay, I can stay married to this guy. I can stay married to this guy when we're old and sitting in rocking chairs. That was my decision point. Yeah. So anyway, and he's we're really good friends to this day, and he's a wonderful dad, and I don't regret one moment of being married to him.
I'm glad.
So, but, today I have many friends who are in the dating pool, and the changes between starting out when you're young and you're expected to have a relationship and being more mature and finding yourself in that same position, one, that's really different, but it's really different from how it was even 10 years ago. What do you think?
Well, I've never been on a dating app, but I hear that people get married from those things. I've never swiped left or right, but and my friends want me to. They want me to get out there and find a guy. They want me to find a guy much more than I want me to find a guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more. I would find it a little risky because of what I know about. I have friends who have been severely catfished. I had a friend who lost everything from being catfished, and so I have acquaintance with the risks of it. So for me, I don't think I would have the courage, but I know that people have found love. Have you ever been on a dating site?
Well, you want to hear another funny story?
Yeah. So
my ex and he had started a dating site with a friend, and the friend gave relationship advice. So the friend said, hey, to my ex-husband, who is a programmer who knows how to write programs for the web, let's create a dating site. And so they did. And then his partner decided he didn't want to be part of it. And so my ex said, hey, do you want to do this with me? And I said, sure, I'll do it. And I'll test it out. I'm single, right? And I have to say, yeah, it was the most, I just felt so weird. One, I always felt like I never needed that. I still, up until I got married again, I still had no problems attracting attention from the opposite sex and being asked out. So for me personally, it was hard, but my husband, who I'm married to now, Eric, he and his wife had met on it wasn't an online site so much. I can't even remember. I think it was a matchmaker kind of a thing. But they met 30 years ago. They were married for 29 years before they divorced, and they met that way, an introduction. So it definitely works for people. In fact, I think it's the number one way for people to get to know each other today. Whether it's just on Facebook or some other social site where you actually get to see the person and kind of experience what they're like online. You can do a little bit of shopping that way. It is a very high source of people that I know that get into relationships and they do it online, whether it's a dating app or whether it's just being on Facebook. So
that's fascinating to me. Linda, I want to ask you this question. You know me, you've known me a long time.
Yeah.
You know my personality and everything. And you said that you have no trouble attracting attention from the opposite sex, but I don't get that attention ever since Duncan died. I don't have that kind of flow coming into me. And I now that when you said that, it was like, well, what's wrong with me? You know, I mean, I have some qualities that might still be okay to be desirable qualities, but I have not had the influx that you just talked about. And I wondered if it was because I just don't put out the invitation, the flow of the invitation, that I'm not, because what is your opinion? Can you tell me what's wrong with me, please?
Well, do you know the same reason that Duncan didn't reach out to you? People are probably put off of it because you're successful, you have achieved a lot. You're, a best-selling author, you headline shows, you're a stage performer. It's almost, you're elevated here, and I'll bet people guys are just put off by meeting.
But they don't know that about me. They don't know that.
I know.
They don't know all that. And I certainly don't tell them, Hi.
Well, again, when you've got the internet, right? It would take like 10 seconds, like, oh, I think she's really pretty. Let's see. Oh, she's this and this best-selling author, sold millions of dollars worth of real estate. She's a stage actress. I mean, she's been on the stage headline shows. She's a composer. Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge.
Oh, okay. I'll take that into consideration. Okay, where do we go from here? I think I interrupted the flow with my curiosity of what was wrong with me.
That's totally fine. So that's the changing landscape of love. But let me ask you, if you saw a handsome guy and you knew his name, but you didn't know anything else about him, how would you find out more about him?
I don't know, Linda. I don't know. I saw one handsome guy. We were taking a class together, and I saw this guy, and I guess I would ask around, and I asked around and found out that he was married. So then it happened one more time when I saw a guy that I thought was maybe the guy, and so once again I asked around, and we went out twice, and we were like brother and sister. And one more guy I asked around. Yeah, that seems to be my modus operandi, is I ask about them to find somebody who knows them. Oh, but can I tell you a very quick story?
Sure.
I was married before I met Duncan, and I was driving down the street in Las Vegas on Flamingo going west, and there was a Dairy Queen over here, and I saw a guy get out of his truck, and he looked like the Marlboro Man. He was so unbearably like Burt Reynolds,
Hmm.
And Tom Selleck wrapped into one. Oh, it was so handsome. I did a U-turn and I came back to the to the Dairy Queen, and I went inside and he was sitting at the counter with his ice cream, and I got my ice cream and I went and sat right next to the counter where he was sitting, a little raised counter, and I said hi. And he said hi, and he was new in town. I said, oh, I'd be happy to show you around. And about 6 months later, we were married.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if I saw a handsome guy, I would do a U-turn. And I didn't know it. There was nobody to ask because nobody in town knew him, and he was a good one.
That's very nice. That's a great story. You were married to the Marlboro Man. Boy, not a popular analogy now, but back then the Marlboro Man was super handsome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Well, good, because that kind of just
where we were, I got all wrapped up in that story.
just a changing landscape of love. What was it like back when we first started dating to going forward? What would you do today? And the first thing I would do when I'm curious about anyone is I go on Facebook and see what's there, what's in social media, because it says a lot about someone. So it says whether they're single or married and some of their views and things like that. And
smart.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a U-turn. Oh, that's very smart. I will do that.
Well, it's just an additional tool. You could still do a U-turn for sure. But there are just some people, especially in the world of political polarization, that still is very, very prevalent today. I was asked out a couple times.
Would you marry a person who differed from you in your political views?
No. It's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. It's not on my list because I didn't think to put it on my list because back when I was writing my list, there wasn't that kind of polarization, so it didn't occur to me. But yeah, interesting. Thank you for answering.
Sure. It's one of those things, and so I would be asked out and I'd go, no, no, you're a no. Because of that. Because it was just like, you're so off the deep end on something on either side of the fence. I'm someone, I definitely have my views and vote in every election, but someone who's just rabid about it is not someone who's a good fit for me. And there you go. But so that's a changing lens. Huh?
Would you also do a background check and check their credit report?
That would actually be a really good idea. I sort of try and get a sense of someone, just kind of looking at them. But again, I'm not in the marketplace for this anymore. It wasn't a super long time for me. So it's what I do now, just for anyone I'm curious about. What's online? And online reveals a lot. So it's been my number one source to look at as a very first step.
That's a really great piece of advice, Linda, I think. And probably people do it a lot more than, oh, I confess I did it. I saw somebody online that I thought, oh, that would be a really good fit for me. And then I prowled around some more. So I guess I have done it.
Okay.
Once or twice.
Well, no shame there. I think that's a prudent thing to do.
Uh-huh.
Now, we're talking about life, love, lust, and things that happen after 50. So let's take up this thing called lust.
Yeah, but I'm 80. Remember, it is different when you're 80. You're a young spring chicken and I'm 80. There's a big difference. Let me just tell you.
There is. As you get older, of course, a lot of things about you physically change, and that's true for everyone. And the amount of sex drive person to person changes. So it's really important, because now you're not going to have kids probably if you're over 50. More than likely, most people won't. But if there is a big difference in sex drive and you're going into a relationship, it can be the undoing of that relationship.
Yeah.
So it's something that's really important. And both my husband and I are over 70. Me by just a little bit, him by, he's a year older than I am. But what I can say is it doesn't have to change, and it can definitely be a big part of your relationship.
Wow.
Just keeping it alive. And, you know, it's a nice part of being with someone. So for me, I just hope 80 is as good as 70, and 70 is great. So
I just can't remember. I can't remember. I'm joking. But I came of age during the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a 60s kind of adventure. Okay?
Yeah.
And it probably, if I look at it in my rearview mirror, I think probably you could justify calling me a little promiscuous even when I was in my early 20. I was 17. And so I would not do that same activity as I did when I was 60, but I had enough to last for probably three lifetimes. So at this point, to be honest, I just could care less. And I don't have any hormones driving my interest. I don't have a fella driving my interest. And I have a body which looks okay in clothes now that I've lost 92 pounds. My clothes are looking okay. But boy, if you know, there's sleep masks, Linda. You know the sleep masks that you put over to block out the light?
Yeah.
I would have to have my new husband, he would have to put the sleep mask on before I entered the room. Because it's pretty gruesome when you stand in the nude and look in a mirror. It's pretty bad. So I don't know how I don't even know how I would handle that. I would have to find a guy willing to wear the sleep mask or keep the lights off or whatever, you know. And I don't even know. Because of being
keep the lights off. That works.
That would probably work, you know. Because being on stage and being a singer and being a dancer, you had to project a certain sensuality.
Yeah.
And I thought I was pretty good at that. Now at this point, I don't think I have that. I think I just have affinity, and I hope that what I pour out is kindness more than, and that's probably why I don't get people asking me out, is because I'm not pouring out that same thing that I poured out before.
Okay. Well, and on the flip side of things, I have a very healthy relationship with my husband in that area. And so we have Saturday night date nights, which always are special.
Nice.
And I just have to say, I have such a wonderful husband for this. And I tend to get over busy sometime and distracted and doing things. And he just insists on, we have Saturday night date night that is always a wonderful place to go, and wine and romance afterwards. And then we have just specific times where I know, okay. And he happens to be someone, he and I are well matched in very many things. So that being one of them. So keeping that spark alive. How do we do it? Well, we're both very affectionate. So we're both touchy-feely type people anyway, lots of hugs and kisses. And then no back off. It really was one of those things about choosing who I wanted to be with was, hey, I don't have a perfect body. I am not perfect anymore. Not like I used to look. And so I can't expect that he is either. So the other side of being intimate is being intimate, right? It is a pleasurable thing when you are loving each other. So just it's good. So I'd say
I think it's fantastic. We're probably the two ends of the possible spectrum
Yeah.
for a woman, a senior woman. Is
Right.
I know lots of women who embody that same spirit. Is that you could still be you could be 90 and still be enjoying a healthy interest in the subject. And I'm perhaps the opposite end of the spectrum, where I have zero interest in it at the moment. That would change if I met the right guy. I think I would become interested. But the people who try to persuade me to artificially manufacture that interest, I don't think I have to, because hey, I've got better things to do. I'm 80. I'm building a business. I'm writing a book. I'm singing songs. To heck with, I'm busy. Don't bother me. So I think it's okay, Linda. It's okay to be either one, like either one of us or anywhere in between.
That's right. If you judge yourself on yourself. I have a really cute little anecdote. And it's maybe like 10 years ago, I met this woman who was an old farm woman. I think she must have been 75-ish.
I didn't get that.
She was married to a farmer.
Married
to a farmer. She loved wearing things that had cows on it. They had a dairy farm. And she and her husband were still very active that way. 75. And so I thought, really? I was looking at her like, she's playing as the day was long. And she said, oh yeah, my husband says, there's snow on the ceiling, but there's fire down below. And I went, that is so dang cute. I can't even believe it.
Oh my gosh.
So, there you go. Snow on the ceiling, but fire down below.
That's very cute. I love it. So,
well, so now we are going to talk about when a relationship goes wrong or times when it's tough. And I realized the most intimate thing that I can think of doing is accepting someone as your partner, as your marital partner or your romantic partner. Because that person is so close to you, they're able to see all sides of you. The good, the bad, and in my case, the very ugly sometimes. And so what you're saying is you're sort of, I always envision this like an overcoat. You're kind of opening up your coat and there's your heart, and you're just saying, okay, I'm giving you permission to wound me, but don't ever do it. Take care of my heart. So toward the end of my very long marriage, my then husband made a comment, and it wasn't, he didn't intend it to be hurtful, but it was his, like trying to explain why our relationship was coming to an end. And he just said, well, you just don't do it for me anymore, or something like that, right? You're just not my item anymore. And I had expected to be married forever. And I went, really? Wow. And so that stuck with me. That was just like, I held on to that little knife stab. It was just sitting right there. And whenever I was tired or I was in a bad mood, and we were still together, we hadn't divorced yet, but it just hurt me so much. Like, dude, I gave birth to 3 kids. Yes, I don't have a bikini body anymore, but God, we've been through so much together. He didn't mean to offend me that way, but I took it that way. So I just want to make that very clear. He's absolutely a wonderful, wonderful guy. So, but I held on to it, and it got worse and worse. And so that emotional intimacy can make you very vulnerable. At least for me, yes. How about you?
I feel that when you said that he said that, it just shot through me. I felt what you would have felt at that time. I have two friends that were going through a rough patch in their marriage, and the wife was no longer, they hadn't had intimate relations for a long time, and he was not her idea of what would make her feel romantic, and he still had those feelings, but he never acted on them. So it can get, it's like there's a baggage, the universal word for mental junk. I think the word baggage is so good, because you're carrying around stuff you don't even know you're carrying it around. People who have baggage, they don't say, oh, well, that's the reason I'm not attracted to him anymore is because I have baggage in the area. They don't think like that. They just go, I'm not attracted to him anymore.
Yeah.
And for your hubby to say that out loud, just, oh, how painful. But these two did say it to one another, and it just broke my heart, because they're just two bodies getting older. It's just heartbreaking. And I remember Duncan at one point got really overweight. He had a big belly on him, like a beer belly. And I remember just rubbing it and admiring it, and just kind of like not making him wrong for having a big beer belly for a while. And then he got rid of it. I don't know. It's just, I don't know if I can even answer that question, Linda. I can't tell you from personal experience a good wisdom, any good wisdom. So the wisdom has to come from your end. Sorry.
I don't know that it's wisdom. Again, each of us are unique individuals, but what I can say is, when you have a slight, it is hard to just throw it away.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Especially, as I said, I feel it's just like the overcoat's open and you give someone that you're intimate with permission to stab you in the heart. So every little thing can land that way, in a way that's not good.
Yeah.
But before we did this episode or plan on this episode, we exchanged our lists, because
Yeah, we did.
I did an episode on making lists. I'm a big list maker. So throughout time, especially after I got divorced, I had a list on who's the perfect mate for me. And so you sent me yours, and I had mine, and mine was just a must-have, nice-to-have, don't-wanters. Meaning, if anyone hits those don't-wanter things, I would never have a relationship with them. And politics was in the don't-wanter side. Smoking, drugs, promiscuous, yeah, out of here. But yours had a few things on it that I really, really liked. So I'd like to just say the things that were very similar, because the actual lists were very similar. We both had what we described as our ideal relationship. What was our ideal situation with our mate? And that was very described out. And then the qualities of must have these. We both had music on it too, by the way. I like that. And nice to have. You didn't have don't want things or deal killers, don't wanters.
Didn't?
Specifically, I didn't notice it.
Oh, well, I have deal killers, and I'm pretty sure they're on paper.
They probably are then. But what you had was what I bring to the relationship and what I want him to bring to the relationship. And I thought, that is so smart.
Huh.
What
Well,
was
let me tell you this.
Yeah?
I wrote that in January of 1989. I tweak it from time to time as things occur to me, but basically I wrote that in 1989 in January, and I met Duncan January 29th.
Wow.
So I'm a big believer in that list.
It worked. And
it worked really, really nicely.
well, I had a girlfriend who recently became single. And so I mentioned my list and I sent it to her. And a week later, she said, okay, I now have a relationship with blah, 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 some person. A week later, she said, I took your list, I filled it out. Now, in her case, then 2 weeks later, she said, well, we're no longer together anymore. But she's around my age, and that was really fast. And the person she was dating, who they both agreed that they were in a relationship together, I think it was around the same age as she, or maybe a little bit younger. So lists for you and I work. And that is the thing that we will be sending to anyone who comments relationship list.
You're not sending my list, are you? Because it's pretty silly.
No, it's just it's a checklist of things that you might want to consider as you put together those must have, nice to have deal killers for your next relationship.
You know how it could be really useful?
Yeah.
Is that there are women, you may have been one at some time, who consistently date the wrong guy that will pull into themselves somebody who is not good for them. You know, maybe they'll pull in somebody who is an alcoholic or on drugs or very highly promiscuous, or the thing that's got to be on everybody. That's probably on everybody's list, unless you happen to be into those things. I guess you would say it didn't matter if you were into those things. But the nice thing about the list is you could evaluate who you're dating. You could go, okay, I'm dating him, but he does this and he does that and he does that. Wait a minute, I said those were deal killers. I think I better say goodbye.
Right.
I remember a girlfriend of mine, she took a new boyfriend, and it was pretty cool for a while. And then she wanted to date within her religion. And I think there's some validity to that. I think I just watched a TV show about podcasters, two sisters doing podcasts like what we do, and they talked about sex all the time. And one of the podcasters fell in love with a Jewish rabbi, and it was very funny, the complications of those two worlds colliding. And for my friend, she wanted to have somebody who at least respected and liked and understood her church and her religion, and he didn't. So instead of hanging on for 5 years trying to persuade him, she just looked at her list and she went, I think I should end this, and she just ended it. It like helped her to be analytical on the subject instead of spending a long time waiting to figure out, this isn't going to work after all. So a list could be very, very handy. You could use it.
It's our number one tip for all y'all out there that are looking for love, and which we have an episode that we'll be doing in the not too distant future, which will be titled Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. And that will have some stories about people we know who have chronically gone into relationships that haven't turned out well. Yeah. And what impact that has on their lives and in every aspect of their life. So that's for the future. This one we're going to wrap up now. And so for all of you that are living life, loving love, enjoying lust, and like talking with girlfriends, we will say thank you for being here today, and we'll see you again next time.